I would say my biggest advice that I always give to people is to just start thinking of yourself as a forever student. Don't stop learning. I mean, whatever it is you're interested in, whatever it is you might want to do, whether it's something inside your 9 to 5, something outside your 9 to 5, just learn about it. Find a book about it. Find a YouTube or a podcast, and just think of yourself as a forever student so that you never stop learning and growing in all areas of your life. I know how to study something, learn it, and then apply it. So why not just do that with my money? So then I started diving into personal finance and reading about stocks and learning as much as I could. And very quickly, I was learning so much that wasn't as hard as I thought. And I was like, how do more people not talk about this? How do more people not know about this?
Stephanie, welcome to KEAL. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me. How's it going?
Very good. You're in a very nice part of the country. I am in a nice part of the country I'm in, so can't complain, We're got a little bit of sun. We like it. Absolutely. Yeah. Stephanie, I'm really excited to have you on for this episode, particularly to talk about personal finances, and just there's such heightened concern in the year that we're living in now. We're filming this in 2022, but really people's anxieties around their own personal finances skyrocketed, I would say, since the pandemic, whether it be with inflation, losing their job because of the pandemic, mounting debt, everything getting more expensive, just one thing after the other, just compounding over and over again. And that really affects people in a sort of devastating way with their mental health as well, just and the way that they conduct their daily lives or relationships with people. So there's just spillover effects as well. So, you seem to have a great way to deliver your messaging with personal finance and the importance of it and to others. And I just want to start off by asking why do you dedicate yourself to doing this, and why is it important to you to want to help others with their personal finances?
Yeah, it started for me around the same time, kind of mid-pandemic, late pandemic. I was just having a conversation and made a comment about how, the wealthy stay wealthy because they've taken all this time to learn about stocks and learn about investing and learn how to manage their money properly. And I just said but I'm not smart enough to do that. And it was kind of this light bulb moment where I was like, well, it's kind of a limiting belief because I was smart enough to go to college, smart enough to get my high school diploma. I got my real estate license. So obviously I know how to study something, learn it, and then apply it. So why not just do that with my money? So then I started diving into personal finance and reading about stocks and learning as much as I could. And very quickly I was learning so much that wasn't as hard as I thought. And I was like, how do more people not talk about this? How do more people not know about this? And I think it was two things. One, I think there is a lack of financial literacy out there for people. Like we talked about, it's not in high schools, it's not taught in the public education. But then on top of that, I think people don't realize that, you're on Instagram all day, you're following all your friends, but you can follow all these other accounts. There's all this information out there online that you can have access to learn more. So I just started the Miss Money Moves account to start sharing about everything I was learning and hope that it would help people. It's taken a couple shifts over the last year or so. I think a lot of it has gone kind of mindset, because I think that your money mindset can play a big role in your personal finances and your limiting beliefs about your personal finances.
Let's go into that a little bit. What is it from everything that you've learned since that time and that interest that's manifested and grew more and more? Let's go into that topic of mindset. What are the most important aspects of what we got to know about money and to use it wisely? And what are some of the ways that can be a detriment if you don't do it well?
Yeah, I think the biggest mindset that I've run into a lot and that I am still trying to unlearn is the scarcity mindset. A lot of people at least a lot of the people I've run into and talked to were raised, around middle class, maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, but their parents were, typically trying to save or penny pinch or cut corners. And so there was always this scarcity, there's not enough money. Money doesn't grow on trees. We have to be careful. We have to be smart, put it in a savings account for a rainy day. That's the thing I heard all the time growing up. And so then that makes you nervous about money. It makes you feel like it's not going to be there when trying to switch over to an abundance mindset. You know, if you have a job and you're working, you're making money, you're always making money. And having the mindset that even if I spend some, more is going to come in because I'm working hard and I'm putting the effort out there. But then also being intentional with your spending. We live in a consumer capital America, so everybody wants something bigger and better and the next new thing. I mean, the new iPhone came out and I've gotten more emails about that than anything else in the last month. So then a big shift there was being more intentional with my spending and really asking, why do I want this? Why am I buying this? Am I buying this because someone's telling me I have to have it, or everybody I know has it? Or am I buying this because I really like this product and it'll better my life and make my life easier? So I think those two mindsets can be really helpful.
When going on that same thread of intentional purchasing, in which like aspects do you see yourself maybe like splurging? Like, okay, I like how much has like that swing gone from, okay, I used to probably buy these things all the time because the behavior in which I acted made me just want that to feel better, versus now where it feels like, okay, I've probably cut out most of compulsive buying and it's a lot more intentional.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that helped with that was starting a budget. And I had tried over all of my 20s and in college to start budgets, and I would sit down and try to start writing it out, and I'd get halfway through it and I'd be like, I don't really need this. Like, the bills are paid. I don't really need to look at this. But when I finally sat down and I was like, okay, I'm just going to look at it just to know where the money's going, not to, judge myself, not to necessarily cut anything out or, restrict myself, just to genuinely see where all the money's going. And the first month I did that, the number I had spent on just eating out and like buying food and getting drinks was it was like 500 some odd dollars in a month for me. And I was like, that is so much money. Like, I could like, how did I spend that much money? And so then just paying attention, I started grocery shopping a little bit more and not eating out all the time and making food at home some. And at first I went all in with that and like completely tried to cut myself off a little bit. And then slowly realized, okay, well, I really miss getting my coffees a couple times a week because I really like having that. And it just boosts my Saturday when I started off with a coffee, and it's under $5. So I'm going to keep doing that because that makes my Saturday better and I like it. But do I need to be going out Tuesday night every night just to get tacos? No, I could probably make tacos at home every now and then. So just those little things and paying attention to how it really affected my mood, and how sometimes eating at home was just as good, if not better, than going out and spending the money. So that's kind of my main example there.
And how was that being tracked? Like through your phone, or do you write it down manually, or how
Yeah, I used a spreadsheet. I had found a few like templates through some people I was following, and those kind of worked, but then I ended up just kind of tweaking it and making my own. I offer a free spreadsheet on my Instagram, so if you guys are curious and want to try that out, it's there and it's for free. But there's budget apps that you can use. There's, you can make a pretty basic little template if you want. So there's lots of options out there. I just love spreadsheets. I'm a spreadsheet person. So that's why I did it that way. But I always tell people, if you try it and you don't like it, try a different way and find one that works for you so that you're more likely to stick with it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like doing what works for you, and that would make you willing and motivated to actually keep track of these things, right? Because it is really a discipline too. Like if you're not used to it, especially, it's might be even a harder discipline. So, but if you can't do it, then and I'm curious, like once you started to do this and once you started to track everything and then maybe reflect on it, etc., did it change maybe the certain types of goals you have in your life in the short term, medium term, long term, about, because me personally, when I started to do that as well, because I track what I spend and what I'm trying to do, like over time, like periodically, it'll be like, okay, I'm gonna have this new goal in my life because of what I'm trying to do with money, and it shifts my daily actions of trying to achieve that. So did that also happen for you?
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's another thing about personal finances. Your circumstances are ever changing. So, when I first started, I had a little bit more disposable income coming in. And so I was able to put more towards my investing goals. And then, we made some decisions about how we wanted to purchase a property as soon as we could. And we made some shifts in my boyfriend's job. So then we had a little bit less disposable income. And instead of, putting all that money into our retirement account, we switched to putting it into a high yield savings account so that it's a little more liquid and we can buy that next property. So I think tracking it is what helped me see like, oh, I have all this extra money right now. And then because I was tracking it, I was like, oh, we don't quite have, 200 a month. We have more like 100 a month right now. And so it makes it a little bit easier to make those adjustments and then to kind of plan, for about how long it might take you to achieve the next goal.
And does that motivate you personally, or is it like present other challenges? Like, okay, now that I'm paying attention to these things and I really want to get there, maybe it's causing more anxiety because I feel like it's way off in the future. Or do you feel like you are very motivated with trying to hit each of those tracks of your goals?
So I think the first, I would say I kind of break it down into parts. The first 6 months was really just kind of about learning where my money was at. And, I made some small goals, but I was really just kind of trying to learn and see where I was at. And then I think I spent about the next 6 months in a very anxious stage of like, okay, now I know these numbers. Now I know I could be achieving this. Why isn't this happening faster? Why am I not, maxing out my IRA the first time I try? Why am I not buying a property in 8 months instead of maybe a year? And so there was a little bit of time where it was causing more anxiety, and I forced myself to kind of keep going with it for a while. And then I decided that I needed to take a shift. And instead of focusing so much on the numbers, I needed to focus a little bit more on the mindset, which is where I've kind of been at the last 6 months. Instead of stressing myself so much about every penny and every dollar, knowing that, okay, I have this budget, I've set it up, I know that it works. So let's stop overanalyzing it and being so hard on myself about it. And let's just let it do what it's going to do. Whether that means my goal takes 6 months, a year and a half, I know I'm still working towards the goal. So it's going to happen.
How is your mindset change when it comes to debt then in that respect? Because you obviously pay probably a lot more attention to those things that are heavier burdens with debt. So like what is your way of prioritizing and your advice to people you maybe even speak with when it comes to like a mortgage or student loans or credit cards? Like, what's the best way to tackle it from what you've seen in practice?
Currently, I have the mortgage, have a car payment, and then I do have some consumer credit card debt. Those are kind of my three big ones. My big theory on the mortgage and the car payment are, it's pretty low interest debt. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to, as long as I make my payment. And when I got my payments, my, whatever they are, $300 to $1,000, I rounded them up a little bit when I first got them. So I've already had them paying a little bit more towards interest, which I think is a good thing to do, but, don't overextend yourself too far because those interest rates are usually low enough. And then the credit card, those ones are usually high. So try to get those paid off as soon as possible. But everybody has credit card debt, especially when they first start out, because everybody tells you, open a credit card, put it on the credit card, get your points or your miles, and definitely do that, but pay it off in full. But if you're starting with a balance, I always just, whenever I have extra money and I go to pay myself first into like my retirement or my savings account, I take half of that and I put it towards the credit card. So if I have $100, I'm like, okay, 50 gets to go to future me, 50 gets to clean up past me's mistakes until we get that paid off. Not that they're mistakes, just that carrying a balance can feel like a burden when you first start trying to tackle that debt.
Yeah, because it can just be overwhelming. It can just swallow you down into a misery hole. And the theme around money seems so obvious and practical, but it seems to be one of the biggest challenges at the same time people face.
On top of that, too, people don't talk about it. My parents growing up rarely talked about money, briefly here and there. And it was usually when we were having some issues with our finances, but none of my friends really talked about money. None of my friends' parents were talking about money. It wasn't until I started actively seeking out the personal finance community that I started having conversations with people about money. And that made me start to try to have conversations with my friends and family about money. And I've gotten better at it now, but those are awkward conversations at first too, because a lot of us grow up learning to, not ask and not talk about it. And
not ask, not talk about it, but spend it like crazy.
yeah, so exactly. Right.
That's easy to do.
Right.
I'm curious because you said friends and family. Like, have you noticed, or what have been maybe some of the major things you noticed, like for them to come to you about this topic? Because maybe has there been a situation where they've noticed, like, oh, she's really become to know the importance of this and how to, do it well? Like, have you had those kind of situations where people come to you and say, hey, please teach me on this, or this thing?
Yeah, I definitely have. I mean, the people that are closest to me at every step of this journey, I've like sent them stuff. Like when I started using my budget thing and I was like, hey, I think I'm going to put this online. I was like, here, why don't you guys try it out? Like, tell me how it is. Like, they're my guinea pigs for everything. So they've kind of been doing it with me a little bit. But I do have people come to me and ask me, like, oh, how would you handle this? Oh, what are you doing about this? And I still think I have a little bit of imposter syndrome when like friends and family come to me and ask. I'm like, they really think I know this stuff. And then I have to be like, wait, I do this all day, every day. I do know what I'm talking about. I do know this stuff. So I have noticed them ask more questions. And I mean, I'm such a personal finance nerd that now that I basically try to steer most of my conversations into like, oh, well, I learned about this today, or have you heard about this? And whether it's stocks or real estate, I'm also a real estate agent. So I love talking about real estate as well. So I feel like I lead them into those conversations a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Go buy that thing. Give me my commission right now. Yeah. Yeah. I can understand that. What, I mean, I guess through this journey that you've been on, what have been, in your opinion, like some of the most important, um, I don't know, like eye-opening kind of revelation ways of seeing what to invest in, right? Like, because what I'm saying is like, you know, obviously there's, you hear about investing in ETFs or, Bitcoin or real estate or whichever. But I mean, you might say real estate because of what you do, but what, like in a very honest way, like what have you come to know as be smart investments for your people's future, right? Because there's a lot out there that can really grab people's attention, but then just suck their wallet dry and be a total, you know, misguided thing to do with their money. So, what have you found, like for you personally, like the right avenues to take that are worthy to invest in?
Yeah, I read some investment advice early on in a book when I was just starting, and it said to keep it simple and to only invest in what you know about. So if you don't know about tech stocks and you don't know about technology and that you're not interested in it and you're not willing to take the time to learn about it, then don't invest in the tech sector because it's not something you care about, For me, I'm bigger in real estate and I'm in the market for real estate every day working in it, that I feel comfortable with that. I feel like I know what I'm doing in that area. I feel like I know what questions to ask. So that feels comfortable to me. Whereas other people, they've never even bought their first house or, they've never thought about real estate. So, and if you're not willing to learn about it, it's going to be hard to invest and make good money off of it. It's just like, I mean, like for me, like you hear about crypto all the time, and I've taken the time to, learn what crypto is and understand it. And for me, it's just every time I dive in, it doesn't stick. And I just don't have the passion for it or the capacity to want to dig deeper. And so I stay away from it because I'm not interested enough in it to learn more to be a smart investor in it. And so I kind of take that with all investments.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's really good advice. I mean, just if you hear about something, you think it grabs your attention, learn about it first before
Yes.
putting it on.
I think that's the most important. Like I said, like I'm not a huge tech person, but tech's pretty interesting to me. So if I was going to go into the avenue of investing into more tech stocks, it'd be interesting. So I would sit down every day and I'd want to learn more about it, which would make me make smarter choices in those tech investments.
Is there anything that you would, I would say, most definitely, like from what you've seen, say, stay away from that kind of thing? Or does
I
it
mean,
just
I'm not
depend?
trying to be a hater, but the whole NFT debacle, I would stay away. If I was giving a close friend advice, I would say I don't understand that, and it seems like it might be a fad. that's going to fade away. I think it's already kind of started to, but so that's my big one that I'm always like, I'm not going to touch that one.
Yeah. I don't even, yeah. I mean,
And I mean, it sounds so like not, I like, I'm like, oh, go and learn. And I'm over here like, I don't get it. But some things you just can't wrap your head around, and that's
I
okay.
know. Yeah. And and honestly, just with how rapidly everything is moving in general in this world, and probably in the next 5, 10 years, and the technology's coming, and a brand new thing of this, a brand new thing of that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
who knows? I think our minds are already overloaded enough to have any
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
capacity absorption of anything. So,
Right.
but
I would also say I'm a long-term investor mindset. So think of things that are going to last. For me, crypto still seems pretty new. So that doesn't, we don't necessarily know all or I personally don't know the longevity of it. However, like the housing market's been around forever. It's going to have ups and downs. So people always need a place to live.
yeah, 100%.
People say businesses like Coca-Cola has been around forever and survived how many recessions? Probably going to survive quite a bit longer, stuff like
Yeah.
that. Think about it in a long-term way.
Very smart. That's a very, very good piece of advice. Anyone who is paying attention to, where we are right now, this conversation, write that down. So think the long term.
Take notes.
Um, what, how do I phrase this? Like, do you feel that like just being on this journey as let's say kind of recently as you have been, um, would do you think it made you in a way a more confident person in a certain way? What I mean by that is like, for example, when I was in a situation for myself, like, debt was mounting and I just felt stuck and I wanted to get ahead in certain ways. I felt probably a bit more insecure at that time. But then when I really tried to figure it out and finally got it solved and got on a track I wanted, I felt more confident. So like it kind of changes something in your mindset as well in that way, like about you personally, or unlock something that was probably just a little bit hidden. So would you say that maybe that part of you augment or change in a certain way, or another aspect of your personality that probably revealed itself?
I would say I definitely feel more confident in myself. I think I have more trust in the financial decisions I make because I feel like I know what I'm doing, and I have learned over the last year that even if I don't know what I'm doing, I can figure it out. I can
Mm,
find someone that does and ask them questions, or I can read a book or take a course and learn more about it. So I think I've definitely grown confidence in that regard. I will say, being still kind of what I would say early on in this journey, there's still days where I question myself. There's still times when I look at my bank statements and I'm like, why does this look like this when I've been working so hard to make these changes? Or, like you talked about earlier when you're saying if you have anxiety about these goals happening, like, I really want to buy this next property. And it's like, why hasn't it happened yet? Why haven't I bought it yet? And so definitely take the good days with the bad days. But I definitely think I trust myself more now. And I know that as long as I keep going, I'm going to achieve the things I want to achieve, which I used to not feel that way. I used to be like, hope for the best.
well, yeah, all of this really, I think, based on what you're saying there too, is like it's really about tenacity, perseverance, and just dedication. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
having that discipline always in the back of your mind, like, okay, this is not going to happen tomorrow, next week, or next month, probably, but to keep going and just, seeing this as a marathon more than anything, and
Yeah.
then finally getting there can really, really, you know, be more encouraging, like you said already, like having that
Yeah.
longevity perception of all this.
I think a lot of people, especially with Instagram these days and social media, will see these people with these big followings making this money from brands and courses or whatever they're selling. And they think, like, oh, it's just so easy to, get on and create that. But what they're seeing is the end product of someone who's probably been doing it for a year, 2, 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
every single day, making no money until you get to that end point.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just remembering they've made it to the successful part. There was a journey in there where they were grinding and no one was paying attention.
Well, and we live in such a time that everything's so instantaneous and just so at the touch of our fingertips, and like, and that we expect everything to be look absolutely perfect to us in under 10 seconds. I mean, just to think that, the consumption of our attention has been so minimized to like a YouTube short or a TikTok thing or an Instagram story thing. I don't know the proper terminologies here, but
basically you get like 10 seconds. So.
Yeah, for all these, but the just the psychological fact that, the most that people can view and consume things are under 10 seconds now is just, I mean, it's unbelievable. And then it has to be that perfect, whatever it is, to get the message across. I mean, it's just, it's really hard to imagine that we're here in this, but it is, it's the way it is, and so, I mean, to really cut through to really have the attention for a longer duration of things, seems to be a challenge, so, but
definitely.
So it's the world right now. Do you think this journey right now as well is like maybe stimulating in a way, like desires of entrepreneurship more and more? Like, I know you're in real estate and that's kind of its own entrepreneurial endeavor, but like, does it make you, because as you grow wealth, you want to expand, I think, naturally, like not just your own personal wealth, but like growing something. Does it inspire onto you like a certain drive towards entrepreneurial activity?
Yeah, I think that I've always had a little bit of an entrepreneur mindset. I've been working my whole life. My uncle owned a farm, so I started working when I was like 12. And pretty much every job I've had, even that one, I always was like, if I owned this, I would do it this way. If I was the boss or the manager, I would do it this way. So I kind of always have had that mindset a little bit. But I think when I finally started taking control of my finances, like you were saying, the confidence, it finally gave me the trust in myself to be like, oh, I could actually make this happen. Because I think before that, it was like, oh, if I ever had the opportunity, I would, do A, B, and C differently. But I was too scared to get away from the consistent paycheck and the, all the benefits that come with a 9 to 5, because 9 to 5 do have benefits that an entrepreneur doesn't, health insurance, all those things. And so once I started learning about my money and my finances, I did gain that confidence. Like, you know what? I could probably figure all of these things out. It'll take time. I'm in the middle of it right now, but I think it gave me that confidence to finally fully embrace that entrepreneur mindset.
And that's a great thing because, yes, the construct of which our society is, especially on the side of the world and many parts of the world, is so intertwined with like the employer, expecting this amount of hours to work, but it comes with the insurances are all intertwined with that. And, it's so codependent that for you to not have that under your umbrella and something happened to you, then you're left to dry. So it's be a challenge. But, I think, as and probably what you're already doing, the amazing thing is that you can probably be working your 9 to 5 or whatever the hours are, and then have something else going in conjunction with that, takes up your time in another way, and you grow it slowly over time as well until you get to a point that it works for you, kind of thing,
Yeah, definitely.
So, oh, Stephanie, well, this is an excellent conversation. And just one last one before we finish right now. Like, what would be maybe like just a couple, 3 sort of tips or insights or just like words of encouragement you can give our audience and our on the podcast platform on YouTube, just to like assure them that, if they take the right first steps, they could get somewhere and not feel overwhelmed with their financial situation?
Yeah, I would say my biggest advice that I always give to people is to just start thinking of yourself as a forever student. You go to high school, and then whether or not you go to college or not, hit a point where you kind of stop with that school mindset. Stop reading books as often, you stop seeking out information, you end up, working and watching your shows and kind of checking out a little bit. But don't stop learning. I mean, whatever it is you're interested in, whatever it is you might want to do, whether it's something inside your 9 to 5, something outside your 9 to 5, just learn about it. Find a book about it, find a YouTube or a podcast, and just think of yourself as a forever student so that you never stop learning and growing in all areas of your life.
I love that. You said like 4 or 5 things in this conversation. Just maybe like, I got to listen back to that and write that down. And I'm going to do that, believe it. No, but
perfect. Good. I love it.
Be a forever student, be forever learning, and just always growing. I think that is golden advice. Stephanie, thank you so much for being on this episode. And where can people find you, connect with you, follow you, possibly work with you if you offer that? Where's all your contact points?
So the best place to get in touch with me, follow me, ask me any questions is definitely on Instagram, my @MissMoneyMoves account. That's where I'll post everything that I'm doing and links to everything that I offer.
Perfect. So we're going to make sure to include Stephanie's information in the pinned comments, the show notes, the description, all across all platforms as we usually do. Stephanie, it was an honor, and thank you so much again.
Thank you. It was great to chat.
Thank you, Stephanie. And we'll see you all in the next episode, and take care, everyone. Have a great day.